Yes, my boss, Dr. Klaus, could not come to this conference. He really wanted to come, I can assure you. He is personally committed to public space as much as any of us here. But unfortunately, he couldn't be present. He then rewrote the speech that he was going to hold into a letter to you, and I should now, on behalf of him, read out this letter to you. Dear Future of Place Conference friends and colleagues, it is regretful that I could not join you today, but allow me to take the opportunity to address you some words taking advantage of your collective expertise. Public space and placemaking is an extremely important element for a city, the ideal platform to deliver an interdisciplinary solution to an often neglected element of the city. In the future, the most functional cities will be the ones that begin with the public realm as the starting point, specifically those that place people at the center of the cities. Successful cities will be designed sustainably, made up of comprehensive plans that put forth people-centered vision, a vision that strays from the traditional focus of planning around objects and instead focus of planning around people. It's up to us to reform the way cities are planned and managed. As a former mayor, I have already a strong conviction on the needs to reassert urban design and planning as two key development drivers of the contemporary city building. By laying streets and setting out public space in cities, should delineate public and private space and begin an urban transformation and regeneration that encourages prosperous cities. When I speak about streets and public space, I'm talking about multifunctional spaces which contribute to creating safe, lively, economically productive public realm. I have always argued what defines the character of a city is its public space, not its private space. What defines the value of the private asset of the space are not the assets by themselves, but the common assets. The value of public good affects the value of the private good. And we need to show every day that public spaces are an asset to the city. Traditionally, cities and their need for attention has had the unfortunate consequences that the view that the city is an assembly of parts rather than a whole. This fragmented perspective has led to disconnection between the various elements of the city and the people who actually use it. Public space provides us with an opportune platform, allowing us to bring together various elements of the city and tailor it in a people-centered manner by including elements of social inclusion, urban safety, mobility, urban economy, education, governance. Public space creates an environment where the individual parts of a city come together to serve the population. This conference series provides us with the opportunity to develop a public space agenda that can positively influence the new urban agenda for the 21st century. One that can respond to the new challenges and the new roles of cities and the strengthening of institutional frameworks for sustainable urban development, as set out in the objectives of the Habitat 3 conference. Habitat 3 will be one of the first global conferences that will be held in the world after the post-2015 development agenda has been set. It is an opportunity to discuss and chart new pathways in response to the challenges of urbanization and the opportunities it offers for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The conference promises to be unique in bringing together diverse urban actors such as governments, local authorities, civil society, and the private sectors, academic institutions, and different interest groups to review urban and housing policies affecting the future of the cities and the future of the world within an international governance framework. Habitat 3 will offer the UN member states an opportunity to discuss and forge a new urban agenda, an agenda that will focus on policies and strategies that can result in effectively harnessing the power and forces behind urbanization. Now is the historical opportunity to bring public spaces and placemaking to the forefront of the urban agenda. The vision of the city, its physical configuration, definition of technical solutions, environmental considerations are all determined through urban regional planning. A reinvigorated urban planning approach will optimize economies of agglomeration, promote sustainable density, encourage social diversity, mixed land uses, foster inclusiveness, maximize heterogeneity, promote livable public space and vibrant streets, and thus make the city more functional, maintaining environmental balances. I encourage the Future of Places Conference to debate and highlight why cities need to embrace a people-centered approach in order to achieve positive urbanization and not fall victim to the negative attributes of urbanization. I'm sure you will be able to draw upon examples and best practices defined throughout the conference series and find solutions to the growing needs of cities. I also encourage you to work on outcomes that can contribute to the 7th session of the World Urban Forum to be held in Medellin in April 2014, a milestone towards the Habitat 3 conference. The outcomes should encompass the importance of creating space for interaction and exchange of ideas. It should take into consideration the many urban functions of a city, accommodate primary infrastructure, create a sense of community, civic identity, and culture, and finally consider the various types of public space available within a city. I also turn to each of you to take the knowledge attained from this gathering, return to your respective countries, carry forward the public space agenda at home. This is the only way we can ensure that such an important issue is at the forefront of the development agenda when we all gather for the 3rd United Nations Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development, Habitat 3, in 2016. On that note, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Axelsson Johnson Foundation and the Project for Public Space for convening, together with us at UN Habitat, an event for setting in motion the vehicle to further the importance of the public space agenda. Allow me also to express our gratitude to the City of Stockholm and the Government of Sweden. It has been one of the most important supporters for UN Habitat, especially in the efforts to promote sustainable urbanization development through projects and knowledge sharing of public space. It's a pleasure that you are gathering in Stockholm and in Sweden. I wish you all productive, successful conference and look forward reviewing the results of your debates. Sincerely, Dr. Jean-Claude. I think that in this letter, there is a couple of key points that come out that we should really keep in mind when we actually spend these 2.5 days together. Because the role of this conference, Future of Places, is really to highlight the needs of the cities in a long-term perspective. And I think that cities need to embrace a people-centered approach in order to achieve a positive urbanization and not to fall back into be the victim of the negative attributes of urbanization that it has had previously. And it's also very important that we, when we do this debate, that we remember that public space has actually started to move away from objects. It's not really the physical architecture. It's much more places today and the social atmosphere than where we really would like to have the focus. And we are really here today because we represent very many different groups. And most of us are here, but some of us are not here. And we have to remember that public space is multi-use, multidisciplinary, and we have to address it from the needs of everyone. There is a need for a new planning approach. I think that we could say that the present way that we look upon cities, and that doesn't really matter if it's in the north or in the south, has pretty much failed. So we are looking for something really new. And that new urban agenda is being discussed and talked about when one now talks about the Habitat 3 conference. What is it going to achieve? Well, hopefully it will achieve a completely new map for how we look onto cities. So the aim of this conference is really to challenge all of you to contribute to an outcome. And we are talking about a declaration of public space that we hopefully will be able to put together after the series of 3 conferences. And with such a powerful paper, so many people that has contributed to a common opinion, and then we can, in the build-up to the Habitat 3 conference, we can use this document to influence national committees, regional processes, thematic discussions. This could be an opportunity that has seldom been looked upon before. And we are really starting well ahead of time, so we can do this together. I think that when we look at important things that has happened in the world, we read about that big conferences was the one that set the tone. Habitat 2 conference in Istanbul, 96, was such a conference. It completely changed the approach to urbanization. The Rio Plus 20 conference last year, the same thing, was also really changing the approach to how we look upon environmental issues in relation to cities. I hope that this conference is going to be the same. I hope that people is really going to remember this conference as the one that initiated a new discussion on how we use cities and how important public space comes in the building of the new urban agenda. So let's hope the best for this 2.5 days.